Let's get this webinar started. I am Christine from Axinom, and today we are going to showcase how to optimize video encoding for your streaming platform. This webinar is made in collaboration with VisualOn and Axinom. One of the biggest challenges for streaming platforms is to create digital workflows that are sustainable, especially in terms of cost and data. Axinom has partnered with VisualOn to offer optimized video encoding and help clients to address this challenge. Now let's meet with our presenters, Johannes and Christophe.
Thank you, Christine. Johannes Jauch, that's my name. I am CTO and co-founder at Axinom. And I'm thrilled to present you today the news that we have around Axinom Encoding. And even more so because I have a fantastic co-host.
Thanks a lot, Johannes. Hello, everybody. Christophe Coquerel. I'm heading the application engineering team in charge of pre- and post-sales support for our customers and partners in the EMEA region. I will be happy today to share information and feedback from the field about our optimizer product and our partnership and integration with Axinom, and answer any questions you would have at the end of the session. Let's start by introducing briefly our companies. Johannes, please go ahead.
Thanks, Christophe. A few words about Axinom. Axinom as a company is known for our flagship product, Axinom Mosaic. Axinom Mosaic is a set of services that can be used independently or together in order to create compelling online video platforms. Axinom Encoding, this is one of the services which we will dig into deeper today. But other than that, we also do have general services for video platform development, for creating fast channels, asset and content management, and not to forget Axinom DRM and everything around content protection.
VisualOn, we are a US-based company in the industry since quite some time now. We provide a set of multimedia player SDKs for pretty much all platforms, helping customers worldwide to power their OTT services with top-notch quality for the end users. We have a very strong background in video codec optimization, which makes us relevant to propose now our new solution, Optimizer, for video encoding optimization.
All right, let's look at what we have planned for today. For the next 30 minutes or so, we will share some more light on the challenge that we are trying to solve for the streaming industry, give a short intro to our technologies, introduce per scene encoding and show how the optimized encoding workflow looks like and what benefits it has, look at some numbers, benchmarks, so you can see how much you can save in bitrate by using the optimized encoding, and then move on to potential financial savings. We end with a conclusion and then take questions from the audience. You can already send the questions in the chat while the webinar is ongoing, so feel free to do so. Now, let's tackle the challenge. Christophe, you're on.
Thank you for the agenda, Christine. Okay, now let's go to the core of this webinar and why we are here together along with Johannes to expose our solutions for encoding optimization. As you know, over the past years, OTT streaming becomes more and more predominant, and this trend is here to stay. More and more people consume video content on their mobile, set-top boxes, dongles, smart TVs, etc. in an OTT way. This is a good news for us all in the industry, for sure. Now, it comes with a few challenges. On the technical side, one obvious challenge is to be scalable enough when you have tens, hundreds, and thousands of users streaming content at the same time. You need to make sure that your system is robust enough end-to-end to deliver the content without hiccups and with the best possible quality for everybody. Startup times, latency become more critical as well, with a comparison to IPTV streaming, for example. And of course, and this becomes a major concern, the carbon footprint, the impact on the environment is also a question. On the business side, OTT setup has a cost. Video service providers invested a lot in the past year in the OTT infrastructure. Now is the time to have return on investment, to make sure that the money spent on marketing and technical setup pays back. One part of that is related to ad insertion, which is an interesting topic, but not the topic for today. Optimizer can help to tackle these challenges by reducing the quantity of bits that you need to stream content while still keeping the best possible quality for the end users. This is the core of the webinar today. We will now start to get into a bit of detail of how this works, and let's start with Axinom Encoding services.
So now that Christophe has introduced us so nicely into the challenges that we are facing, let's have a look at the technologies that VisualOn and Axinom have put in place and combined in order to tackle and solve these challenges. First, there's Axinom Encoding. Axinom Encoding is a software as a service offering with a developer-friendly API. It's easy to get started. Just head to the Axinom portal, register for an account, and you can create an evaluation environment and get going within minutes and encode your first video. It's leveraging the cloud, which means it's highly elastic. Jobs that you could do on premises sometimes in a couple of weeks can be done all in parallel within just a few hours. You can encode an entire library of content that you may have at hand. Then it supports really multiple formats. If your video is at AVI or MP4 or H.264, you name it, it can consume all sorts of input video and create multi-DRM protected assets out of that. It creates multi-bitrate assets, so you can choose video presentations that you need. You can have one input bitrate and create 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 output bitrates depending on your use case and need. It supports multiple audio tracks, multi-channel audio, as well as subtitles, many of those. And it's cost-effective. It's really based on a per usage fee, so you pay as you go and you pay for what you consume. And so far, it didn't have this brand new feature that we're introducing right now, which is per scene encoding, thanks to VisualOn Optimizer. And now let's have a look at that.
Thank you, Johannes. Let's see now what is VisualOn Optimizer. Optimizer is a per scene encoding technology, a server-side component. This new offer from VisualOn, officially announced during IBC 2022, is now deployed in production and as well now available integrated in Axinom's encoding solution. This technology will achieve the best possible trade-off between quality and bitrate. The idea in the end is to have what you see on the right of the slide, which is a side-by-side demo of Big Bugs Bunny, one with FFmpeg, one with Optimizer applied to it. It's a blind test demo. We've been using that, for example, at IBC, asking people if they see a difference in quality between the two parts of the video. Of course, during this webinar you may not notice, but the result was always the same. It is the same quality. But still, on the left you have FFmpeg with 2.4 megabit per second, and on the right, Optimizer with 1.45 megabit per second. So that's the idea. You get the same end-user visual quality, and you save bitrate. Okay, now let's go a bit more in the technical details. First, Optimizer is not an encoder. It is a piece of software running on the server side by side with the encoder. Optimizer does video analysis on the fly, and on the fly, we tune the encoder for optimal compression. The Optimizer can be integrated in existing encoding workflows in a straightforward way, and it can be controlled so as to save as much bitrate as possible or improve the visual quality, or a mix of the two. Depending on your context and needs, you can easily tune the Optimizer to match the best balance for you. The improvements that we see are often in the 50, 60 and plus % in terms of average bitrate settings for the same quality, and 20 plus in production in average. The settings depend on the content, of course. Some content will show higher settings, some less. But our claim, proven in production, is 20% or more in average for your catalog of content. Now, and to sum up some of the key features of the Optimizer. Basically, the idea is to save bandwidth, save bitrate when delivering video content. This is key and positively impacts on the delivery costs for you, but as well on storage, the files are smaller, and finally for your end users, they need less bandwidth to stream content and less battery by decoding lower bitrate content. Ultimately, you save energy on streaming. Think about some 20% saving for each playback, multiplied by the number of playbacks. Now, there are some flexible settings to ask the optimizer to deliver better quality, even with lower bitrates. The magic comes from the optimizer capability to allocate more bits to the more complicated scenes, while saving them for easy-to-encode scenes. The notion of target VMAF is a key setting when enabling optimizer in your production workflow. Optimizer can be easily configured to match your needs in terms of compression/quality ratio. Typically, and for example, you may want to set a high maximum bitrate and large VBV buffer size. Then, you will get better visual quality at challenging scenes without necessarily increased overall bitrate. And you can do the contrary if you need better control of the bitrate fluctuation through the content. As you will see in the benchmark data a bit later, we have room to save bitrate and improve the visual quality. Optimizer works for VOD and for live as well. For live, there is no extra latency. The source still goes straight to the encoder. We will just do in parallel our analysis and start tune the encoder as soon as we can. So no extra latency added. And for live as well, a key KPI is peak bitrate, because you need to dimension your CDN to cope with peaks, and here again, Optimizer can help you. Optimizer can help save on CPU usage. If you are using dual-pass encoding these days, with Optimizer you can go to single-pass encoding. Finally, and this is very important, Optimizer is based on standards. It accepts in input most of the standards in the industry, and the output is still fully compliant with the standards, typically H.264, H.265. As opposed to some other encoding improvement offers in the past or nowadays, where the solution deserves both some investment on the server side and specific players in production, which means updating the video streaming application for all users. Any player in production, any device, is capable of playing the content optimized with the optimizer. All in all, Optimizer is the most efficient shortcut for improved compression. Say that today you are using AVC and think about going to some other codec flavor. Optimizer can help you keep AVC and jump right away to big improvements in your service. And as Johannes will expose, you will see that implementation and integration are just straightforward. Now, we started with side-by-side comparison with Big Bugs Bunny. We have the same for Tears of Steel. You can go download it from our website and make your own mind. Seeing is believing. Now, Johannes, let's go into some details of the integration in Axinom workflow and the benefits from this integration.
Thanks, Christophe, for this thorough technical introduction. If you have been listening along, you might ask yourself, if you're an Axinom Encoding customer, what the integration of this VisualOn optimizer means. It brings per scene encoding to Axinom Encoding, but what does it mean for the code that creates the jobs and how to request those? The good news is Axinom Encoding customers can take advantage of VisualOn optimizer with minimal changes to the encoding workflow. So let's have a look at what per scene encoding actually encompasses on a high level. Without per scene encoding, high-level encoding parameters are defined once and used for the entire encoding process. It's like you running an FFmpeg command and for an entire video, and you just define parameters once on the command line and they are used throughout the video. So you can imagine and think of it like per scene encoding, allowing you to adjust those parameters scene by scene. It is able to detect scenes and then adjust parameters to improve quality and or compression rate. And typically, movies, videos, they have very different, significant variations in scene complexity. These three images that are on this slide show images from one and the same movie. So first of all, it's all from Forrest Gump. First of all, there's two people sitting on a bench talking to each other. Very little movement, very easy to encode. Could use quite a different set of parameters if the whole video would be like that. Then the second one, a little bit of sports, movement left and right of the table, those guys playing table tennis. And then the last scene, lots of moving parts, much harder to encode. You would need another different set of parameters here to optimize it. And that's actually what's happening. All right, now let's have a look at the optimized workflow. You may have asked yourself how much this workflow changes when you use per scene encoding if you have been using Axinom Encoding already before. Good news is that there's not much change. All the steps essentially stay the same. There's the pre-validation going on, acquisition, media mapping, encoding, DRM protection, packaging, image extraction, and finally publishing step. During the encoding step, this is where VisualOn Optimizer will be leveraged if you choose to do so. And in order to take advantage of VisualOn Optimizer, you only need to do one change in the encoding job, which is depicted in the lower right corner here. You see there's a new entry here. You can use encoding mode per scene. And if you use that, then that's essentially all that needs to be done. Your video will be per scene encoded and the result will be probably smaller in size and with a higher quality. And this leads us to the benefits of using an optimized encoding workflow. And there are many of them. Let's have a look. So there's benefits for OTT companies. We get one thing, higher encoding efficiency, and that leads to reduced data storage costs, which in turn leads to reduced CDN transfer costs. And then there's also benefits for end users. End users, on average, they get a better image quality while using the same bandwidth. They have less buffering times probably, and they have a more uniform viewing experience across devices. But that's not all. It's already a win-win situation, but there's also benefits for everyone because it actually reduces the carbon footprint by delivering and storing less data, delivering less data through CDNs, consumes a lot less energy, which means less CO2 emissions, and so everybody and also the planet benefits from the whole thing. We've been talking a lot about how cool the technology is, what it can achieve, and what the benefits are. I think it's time to show some evidence. Christophe, please show us the numbers.
Thanks, Johannes. Let's look at the actual results now from production environment with Optimizer and the savings that we achieved. In this first case focused on VOD, our customer could move from dual pass encoding with FFmpeg to single pass encoding with the Optimizer for FFmpeg. The outcome is that the visual quality for the end users is similar, and this was assessed with both VMAF score calculation, but also and most importantly, with blind test comparison of the original output files from the encoding workflow in production against the output files with Optimizer. In terms of settings, Optimizer constantly saves bitrate, and this for SD, HD, UHD, and both LVC and HEVC for all runs in the ladder, and for any kind of content, sports, movies, series, etc. On average, as shown on the table, Optimizer helped to cut the bitrate by 2. This customer is now up and running in production with the Optimizer. In this second case, we are here on live. Optimizer was compared to current output files for live from a FFmpeg-based encoding workflow. The set of content was national and international live channels covering news, sports, documentaries, etc. What we see here, similar to the previous case, is again a gain by 50% in average bitrate, of course when maintaining the visual quality for the end users. Most importantly for live, Optimizer cuts the peak bitrate by 35% in average, And since the CDN has to be dimensioned to handle the peaks, this translates in CDN savings. Okay, let's go now to one more and last case back on video, the next slide. In this last case, Optimizer was challenged against output files from a private encoder workflow with 3 different movies. Again, we can see here some pretty interesting savings, but as well in that case, there is a chance to simplify the bitrate ladder. As you can see, this customer has 3 rungs in the ladder for the 720p resolution, 2, 4, and 6 megabits per second. Optimizer can match the visual quality of the 6 megabit per second variant by using similar or less bitrates in average than the 2 megabit per second variant. In such case, the ladder can be simplified and go from 3 variants for 720p down to 1. The same goes for the 3 other variants for lower renditions. They are not in this table, but Optimizer did show as well such low average bitrate that those may also be merged into 1. As you can see, this is another benefit of the Optimizer, simplification of the delivery workflow. Okay, thanks for your attention. I hope this helps to clarify what is the Optimizer, how easily it can be integrated and configured, and how it can benefit your OTT service. Johannes, let's now see how this translates into business.
Thank you, Christophe. Yes, let's have a look at the costs. Is it worth it? So first off, this decision can be made per video. So you can choose video by video if you want to use per scene encoding or not. Because upfront cost for a per scene encoded video is higher. So you pay a bit more per output minute than you would pay if you would use a normal encoding workflow. However, distribution cost is lower with per scene encoding. So, and there's a sweet spot of consumption, how we call it. And this is when in this lower diagram that you are seeing there, the lines cross. I will explain that in a second. And beyond the sweet spot, customers save money by providing better user experience to end users. That sounds really like a win-win. You save money by delivering something better. So let's have a look at these 3 diagrams. The first shows the encoding cost. Blue is non-optimized and orange is optimized. So the first off cost is just higher when you use an optimized workflow. But then let's have a look at the distribution cost, the traffic cost in the second diagram. So the line, it's a linear line. We are assuming that you have a certain amount of money that you pay per gigabyte distributed with your CDN provider. And this line is just steeper with non-optimized video because to the right there are the views, and the more views you have, the higher the amount of money that you have to pay. And the last diagram shows these 2 things combined. So with an optimized video, the orange one, we start at a higher price point because we already paid a bit more when creating the video, but then the number of distributions dictate how much traffic cost is added, and the more views you get, the higher the total cost becomes. However, there's this line, this point where the lines cross, and from that point on, the non-optimized version is even more costly than distributing the optimized version. And so let's now have a look at where this point actually is. And this is shown on this slide. Here we show a sample calculation for a single video, 90 minutes in length. We assume that we create an adaptive bitrate asset with 2 HD and 4 SD resolutions and calculate the cost for this. So let's have a look at the encoding cost for optimized and non-optimized versions. If you look at the cost per minute for SD resolution and cost per minute for HD resolution, you see there is quite a difference. And if you do the math, then you end up at the last line, which shows the total cost for the video encodes. In the one case, non-optimized, you pay just a little bit shy of €8, and in the optimized version, a little bit more than 11. And the difference is €3.17. Now, with an additional cost of €3.17, the question is, how many videos do we need to distribute until we reach that sweet spot when it becomes more affordable to distribute higher quality than non-optimized video? And there we've also made some assumptions here. So average bandwidth without optimizer is 2,500 kilobits per second. And the average bandwidth with optimizer would be 1,750 kilobits per second. And let's assume you have a per gigabyte price of 0.005 euros, which is somewhere in the middle of expected costs. This is a bit tricky here because CDN prices can vary, and they vary a lot by the amount of traffic that you send over that CDN. It can be an order of magnitude higher and lower. That's possible, but it should give you a rough idea still. So the delivery cost per non-optimized video we have calculated here, and then we have calculated the delivery cost per optimized video, which is obviously cheaper because it's less data to be sent. And then we have calculated a cost savings per video delivered. It's really a small amount, 0.0025 euros, but you also have to only save €3.17 to get to the sweet spot, and that translates to 1,252 views in this case. Meaning, as soon as you have more than 1,252 views of that specific video that you encoded, you have saved these €3.17, and you just continue saving more the more you deliver that video. So a question arises, what if I have more than 1,200 some views? What if I have 100,000 views? In that case, you already saved 250 euros. So looking at this from an investment perspective, an investment of €3.17 brings you back 250 euro. That's a return on investment of 7,886%, which makes the whole decision-making process rather easy.
And as you just saw, using the Axinom and VisualOn integration, not only you can save on cost, but you can also be scalable with sustainable optimized workflows. Seeing is believing, but we want to get you one step further. You can try it out right now on the Axinom portal, where we provide hands-on free trials, development documentation, and much more. Head on over to portal.axinom.com or click the URL in the chat. We will share it in a moment. Next on, we are taking some questions from the audience.
Okay, I see a question. I think I will take it. Hello, everybody. Nice to meet you. A question around the settings, and if it's possible to have some universal settings that will apply to every content. And that's a good question. The answer is yes. Optimizer, so as we said, has some settings, very simple, to kind of define the target compression/quality ratio. And you can have a universal setting that will give you the average savings that we exposed in the slides during the presentation. That's what we have in production, for example, right now, with the same setting for a full catalog of VOD content, and we have the average savings. And what is available as well in the Axinom Encoding portal. As Johannes said, if you go to Axinom portal and you turn on the per scene encoding, we will apply a universal all-purpose setting that will target the same visual quality and save as much as possible. So same setting can apply to everything, every content. Of course, and that being said, if you feel a need to have different settings, for example, you have some kind of content where for you the goal is to save as much bitrate as possible and keep the quality, but you have other content where you would like to get better quality, then we can tune this setting. And after you will have tried, for example, on the Axinom portal, and you feel a need to tune this setting, just come to us and we can help you to enable it. You'll see it is pretty easy. I hope this answers the question.
Thank you, Christophe. There's another question. Can you develop the same MX files with XTCAM HT422 or IMX encoding? This can help save space on production storage.
Okay. This is a very good question. It may be a bit too technical for me. As I said, I am a field application engineer and I want to share feedback from our optimizer in the field. This question, I will need to check with my colleagues in charge of optimizer and share the answer. I can do that, and we can share the answer in the webinar, recorded webinar, when it will be made online. But sorry, I cannot answer right away on this one.
Maybe they can also contact you on LinkedIn, for example.
Absolutely. I have a clue of the answer, but it is technical, and I prefer to be safe and work on that with my colleagues in charge.
Thanks, Christophe. So let's take the next question.
Yes.
How about bitrate fluctuation control?
This one is as well very interesting, and this one I can answer. Good news. There are ways to easily set some constraints on the bitrate fluctuation. As you can easily understand, by definition, optimizer will generate output files with variable bitrate. At places where we need less bits to keep the quality, you will have less bitrate, as opposed to places where we will have more bitrate. And this leads to fluctuation in the bitrate. This may not be an issue at all, but if for some reason you need to have better control on the bitrate fluctuation, that can apply to VOD a bit more for live. There are ways to control the fluctuation. Typically with FFmpeg, you have two settings, max rate and the VBV buff size, that will help to reduce the fluctuation. You can control it. The result is more control of the fluctuation, of course, higher average bitrate. But as you could see in the diagrams in the presentation and what we see as well in production and with optimizer, we have room enough to give more control to the bitrate fluctuation and still save. And by the way, again, the setting that is in Axinom Encoding portal is an all-purpose setting where we tell the encoder, the optimizer, to save as much as possible, resulting in a fluctuation in the bitrate. If, after you have tried on the portal, you feel a need to more control on the bitrate, just let us know, come to Axinom, come to us, and we can help to enable that with you and for you.
Thank you. So there is another question. Are there any limitations in your solution? Powers of encoding, concurrent jobs, etc.? Maybe JJ can take this.
Yeah, it sounds like a question for me. Well, the short answer to this is probably no. There are no such limitations to the number of encoding hours, so such no limitations like that. Concurrent jobs, as Axinom Encoding is a fully cloud-based, cloud-native service, it scales easily with demand. So we can encode in parallel 2 jobs, 10 jobs, 50 jobs, whatever. The only thing that I would like to request and ask our customers is to, if you want to encode more than 100 jobs in parallel, don't just do it, talk to us and let us know beforehand. But other than that, there are no such limitations.
All right, we still have more time.
Yes, and to add on top of that, and thanks for that, Johannes, on the pure optimizer side, there is no limitation. Well, we can scale up to the server scalability capabilities, no problem. Go ahead, Christine, with the next question, sorry.
No worries. So there is a question. You talk about flexible settings, but Johannes' screenshot shows only a per scene setting.
Well, that's true. That's a good catch. That's a good catch. Somebody has been looking at the presentation in detail. True, as we said, we made it simple in the Axinom Encoding portal with one simple setting per scene. And then, boom, you trigger optimizer. And again, this is with an all-purpose generic setting that is generally suitable for production. But again, as we said, if you feel a need for different settings, like for example, more bitrate control, or you want to have a higher quality because you will have tried on Axinom Portal, you see the savings and you see that you have room for more quality and still save, just come to Axinom, come to us, and we can enable it for you. Again, it's very simple. We wanted to make it simple on the portal, so you can go, try. If you need some tuning, of course, we can tune for you based on your needs and context. So just come to us in that case.
Yes, and maybe I can add here.
Yes,
Come to us.
yes.
Oh, sorry.
Go on.
Come to us means in the Axinom portal, what we have support always only one click away. So you can always, if you're navigating the Axinom portal on the lower right corner, you will always find a feedback button that you can use to raise a support ticket anytime. We have our support staff who are there to help you. So in any case, if you have questions around that, how to configure things and or request certain changes, whatever, feel free to use that. It creates a support ticket. We will follow up on that and we will make sure that the cases get resolved.
Is there any other comments you would like to add?
On this one, for me, no. We work hand in hand with Axinom team, so happy to help case by case for sure.
How can I, as a customer, get such efficient results?
First part of the answer, is to get this kind of results. The first thing you can do is go to the Axinom Encoding portal and try it out. In the portal, we have set a default all-purpose quality setting in the optimizer that will match the quality and save as much bitrate as possible. So you can go try it out and you should get quite interesting results. To go in a bit more details, maybe the key of this solution is the quality of the scene change detection and the ability to tune the right encoder setting on the fly adequately and on time. And it seems that we have a pretty good solution for that. When we did benchmark optimizer, now as well in production, we do see savings in pretty much all cases. Of course, note that it depends on what we compare to. If you are currently using constant bitrate or variable bitrate already, if you already use some kind of optimization, for example, per content, the results will change. But overall, you should see some interesting savings already just by trying in the Axinom portal with our default setting.
Johannes, are you back? Maybe you have something to add to it.
Not much. I think, go to the Axinom portal and try it out. By using the default settings, I think in 80% of the cases, you will already see good results that are impressive and good enough to go. And if you need further assistance and need to tweak the last bit out of that, I would say we can arrange that and also include Christophe and VisualOn and to help parameterize in the best way possible.
There's another question. We are not experts and we'll need help to figure out the best settings. Will I get help?
Good question. Yes, the answer is yes, of course, you will get help. On the Axinom portal, we do have on every page on the lower right corner, click the feedback button there. You can always raise a question and create a support ticket. Our support staff is there. We have unlimited support for Axinom Encoding and DRM during integration phases. So that's something that is easily achievable. So we will help you with that. Don't hesitate to send any questions and create a support ticket, and we will follow up there. The team is there and waiting for your questions.
Yeah, and maybe to add on that, and thanks for that, Johannes, we do work hand in hand with Axinom. And at VisualOn as well, we help our customers in pre-sales validation phase as we do for our signed customers. We get full help from us, whether it is just to get hints, best practice, advice for the most adequate settings, for example. We will help you along with Axinom. And we can as well, should you have any kind of specific need, engage with our R&D and check on it. So please don't hesitate.
Thank you, Johannes and Christophe. We have a next question, and it is like, what method do you recommend to assess results?
I can take this one. It is a very good question, very important. In the end, as you understand, the goal is to save bitrate, but to keep the same quality or even to have a better quality. So visual quality check is a must. Basically, there are two ways to do that. One is a calculation with a score that you can get, which is a VMAF score, that will give you an idea of the quality, overall quality of your content. For the VMAF score calculation, if you need help after you have run some content on Axinom portal, you can ask, we can help you for the VMAF calculation. So that's one method. The other one, which is absolutely interesting as well, is just compare with your eyes. That's typically a side-by-side comparison with your current output files, what you will get out of the encoding with Axinom Optimizer, and compare side by side. And the best is even to do a blind test. You can either play that on the same screen with split of the two videos, there are tools for that, or you use, for example, two set-top boxes with two large screens side by side, and you ask colleagues to compare the two and see if they see any difference. This kind of blind test has been used by our customers before they go into production, and that was a key validation. When the colleagues said, it is the same video, but still one is saving bitrate compared to the other, then you know that you are good to go.
All right, thanks. We have two more questions.
Yeah.
Is there CPU and memory overheads?
Okay, I will take this one as well. Yes, there is some CPU and memory overhead, obviously. Optimizer is an additional piece of software that we run on the server, as we said, side by side with the encoder. So you have this additional software running on the server, so we need to consume a bit more CPU, and we need to consume a bit more memory. But we did some benchmarks, and we are talking about a very small percentage of extra CPU need, for example. And that being said, again, as we said during the session, if right now you are using dual pass encoding, you can go to single pass encoding, and with that, you will save way more than the CPU overhead. Also, and that was the purpose of the third example in the benchmarks, in some cases, you may want to simplify your bitrate ladder. You can go, for example, to 7 rungs in the bitrate to 4, for example. Then you need to encode 3 rungs less. And again, that's a way to balance the small extra CPU overhead with less encoding jobs to run for the same content.
All right. If there are still any questions in the audience, please send them in now. Otherwise, we're now reaching the last question we have. And it is as following. I am using CBR for now. Will VBR impact play out with my players/apps in production?
Okay. I'll go for this one again. That's a good question again. So constant bitrate, variable bitrate. It's a difference, of course, because the bitrate will fluctuate over time. But as we explained during the webinar, Optimizer is only helping the encoder to do the best possible job. So what you will get out of the encoding, transcoding process is still completely compliant with the standards. It will still be H.264 or H.265. You will still have the same audio video codecs. So nothing is changing in this respect. It means that any player in production, any app, will still be able to consume the content after the optimization, as it was the case before. So you just invest on the server side, optimize encoding, but all the rest down the road, from the packaging, DRM, CDN, until the playout, is unchanged. Hope this answers the question.
Right, then we are finished with the questions. So big thank you for everybody for joining. You can add us on LinkedIn. If you have any more questions, definitely head out to portal to check it out yourself. And otherwise, big thank you for you. And yeah, any questions, please just feel free to contact us. And yeah, thank you for joining.
Thank you very much, Christine, Johannes, and everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. I will end the session now.